Capricorn. There are messages we choose to hear. And then there are messages that choose us. Not every message comes wrapped in words. Sometimes, it arrives as a feeling. A quiet ache in your chest when you wake up before sunrise. A single tear you can't explain on a day that was supposed to be ordinary. A sudden pull in your spirit that whispers, something is about to change. This is not a coincidence. This is not just another video. And you didn't just stumble here. You were brought. There are moments in life when the universe pauses everything else. Just long enough for truth to catch up with you. And when it does, it doesn't knock. It walks straight through the door you thought was locked forever. Capricorn, you've spent your life being the strong one. The dependable one. The one who never crumbles, even when everything inside you is shattering. You've survived the storms no one saw. And you've carried weights that would have crushed lesser souls. And now, something sacred is happening. Not out there. Inside you. A shift. A stirring. A knowing. The kind of inner change that doesn't announce itself with thunder, but instead, feels like your soul exhaling for the first time in years. If your heart has been aching for something you can't name, if you've felt like life has been holding something back from you, not to punish you, but to prepare you, then this message, this moment, was born for you, just as much as you were born to receive it. Because what you're about to hear will not only explain the pain, it will honor it. It will not only speak to your mind, it will speak to the part of your spirit that almost gave up waiting. Capricorn, stay with me until the last word. Not because I want you to watch this, but because you owe it to yourself to finally feel seen. To finally understand why your path was the way it was. Why the delays? Why the losses? Why the silence? So before we go any further, I want you to type 3 simple words in the comments. Not for me. For you. For the universe. For the part of your soul that knows what's coming. Write it down. I am ready. Say it out loud if you have to. Because once this message enters your spirit, you won't just be watching a video, you'll be remembering who you were always meant to become. Part 1. The burden of strength. Capricorn, no one ever taught you how to be strong. Because life never gave you a choice. While others were being carried, you were already carrying. Carrying expectations. Carrying responsibilities. Carrying people. You weren't handed a childhood. You were handed a role. The steady one. The calm one. The one who holds it all together when everything around you is falling apart. And somewhere in that journey, you learned to associate love with labor, peace with performance, and value with how much you could endure. You became the person everyone leaned on. But where could you lean? You knew how to show up, how to fix things, how to smile at funerals and keep going when no one else could. But no one ever asked, who's carrying you? Let me tell you a story. Story insert, a letter she never sent. There was a Capricorn woman named Alicia. She worked 2 jobs, raised her younger siblings, and cared for her father during his illness. All before turning 30. She never cried in public. She always said she was fine. But every night, she wrote letters in a notebook. Letters she never sent. Letters that began with, I don't want to be strong anymore. In one of her entries, she wrote, sometimes I wonder if people love me, or if they just love how strong I am. And that, Capricorn, is the heartbreak so few people ever see in you. They admire your strength, but forget your softness. They praise your resilience, but ignore your exhaustion. Spiritual truth. The world has been so used to watching you endure, that it forgot to ask if you're okay. And because you're a Capricorn, you rarely let them see that you're not. You've survived on strength so long, you've become fluent in hiding your needs. But let me ask you something you haven't heard in a long time. What do you need, Capricorn? Not what you can fix. Not what you can build. What do you need? What does your soul crave when it's no longer performing? Because the truth is, your strength has never been the problem. The real wound is that you've had to be strong for too long. Alone. A moment of recognition. And now, the message comes. Not to tell you to keep pushing, But to tell you this, you have nothing left to prove. You've earned rest. You've earned love that doesn't require performance. You've earned space where you don't have to be everything for everyone. This is the part of your journey where your strength is no longer your currency, but your crown. Not because you keep going, but because now, you finally allow yourself to be held. Life lesson, the real definition of strength. Capricorn, true strength is not in how much you carry. It's in your willingness to lay it down. When your soul says, enough. You are not weak for needing rest. You are not selfish for wanting peace. You are not broken for craving softness. In fact, you were born for it. Let this be the part of your life where you stop surviving on strength and start living in wholeness. If any part of this felt like it was written for you, type in the comments again. I am ready, because the burden you've carried is real, but so is the blessing waiting on the other side of it. And this was only the beginning. Part 2, the sacred silence. Capricorn, there's a kind of silence most people fear. The kind where the phone doesn't ring, where no doors seem to open, where even the sky feels like it's holding its breath. But you've lived inside that silence for years. Not because you failed, but because you were being prepared. They told you to be patient, to wait for your time, to trust divine timing. And you tried. You tried to stay hopeful when nothing moved. You tried to stay faithful when the only sound was your own heartbeat echoing in an empty room. But deep down, even your Capricorn strength has limits. You wondered, have I been forgotten? Is anyone even watching me try this hard? And the most dangerous thought of all, did I imagine the dream? Let me tell you something no one ever said loud enough. That silence was never rejection. It was sacred construction, invisible preparation. It was the moment before the artist steps onto the stage, the hush before the sky splits open with thunder, the stillness before the seed breaks through the ground. You were not overlooked. You were hidden. Hidden, like royalty before coronation. Protected from voices that would have crushed your belief too early. Shielded from people who would have used your gifts before you knew how to use them yourself. Guarded from the noise of a world that rewards noise but rarely rewards depth. Because Capricorn, you are not a surface-level soul. Your path was never meant to be rushed. It was meant to be rooted. Let me show you what I mean. There was a man named Elijah, another Capricorn soul. After building his own business from scratch, he lost everything overnight during a recession. For 3 years, not a single investor returned his calls. He tried to pivot, to rebuild, to rise again. But all he got was silence. He told his friend, "It feels like I'm shouting into the void." Maybe the dream died, but something told him to keep showing up, to keep working in the dark, to keep refining his vision while no one was watching. And then one day, the silence broke. A global client knocked on his door, and they said, "We've been watching you work in the background. You didn't stop when the world stopped. That's why we're choosing you now." He didn't realize that during the silence, people had still been watching. The right ones. The ones that mattered. Capricorn, do you hear what that means? Even in your quietest season, you were still being seen. Not by the world, but by destiny. And destiny does not need an audience to move. Sometimes it hides you to protect your power. Sometimes it quiets your life so your soul can become louder. So that you stop looking outside for answers and begin listening to the one voice you've ignored the most. Your own. Because in silence, you finally start hearing what your soul has been whispering all along. Capricorn, do you know why it felt like everything stopped? Because you were growing underground. Like a seed buried beneath the soil. Your roots had to stretch deep into the unseen. So deep that no storm could rip you out once you rose. And you are rising. The silence is breaking. Can you feel it? There's a restlessness in your spirit now. A sense that something is shifting. That's not your imagination. That's spiritual movement. The ground is stirring beneath you. And soon, very soon, the world that once forgot your name will see you in full bloom. But when they ask, "Where did you come from?" you'll know the truth. You didn't just arrive. You endured. You prepared. You grew silently while others shouted loudly. And now, you no longer need to prove yourself. Because what's coming for you recognizes the depth inside you. It was never for the loud. It was for the loyal. For the rooted. For the ones who stayed faithful when nothing around them gave reason to believe. Capricorn, your silence was never empty. It was sacred. It was strategic. It was divine. And now that you've learned to stand without applause, you'll never again be shaken by anyone's absence. You no longer need permission to be powerful. Because your power was forged in the quiet. Before we move on, I want you to type it one more time. I am ready. Not because everything is perfect, but because now you understand. The silence wasn't proof of nothing. It was proof of something too important to be rushed. You didn't miss your moment. You were being made for it. And it's almost here. Life Lesson, Part 2. In a world addicted to noise and speed, silence can feel like punishment. But for souls like yours, souls built for legacy, not attention, silence is where the foundation is formed. The greatest things in life are never rushed. A tree doesn't rise before its roots are deep enough. A diamond doesn't form without pressure and time in the dark. And a Capricorn doesn't step into power without first being refined in private. So if you're in a season where nothing seems to move, remember this. You are not being buried. You are being planted. Let the silence teach you what the noise never could. That what's meant for you cannot be missed. And when it comes, you'll be rooted enough to carry it. Because silence isn't the absence of progress. It's the soil where purpose grows. Part 3. The door you thought would never open. Capricorn, there's a moment in every soul's journey where you stop knocking. You've stood before so many doors. Opportunities, relationships, dreams. And waited. Waited with hope. With hunger. With everything in you whispering, maybe this time. But each time, silence. Or worse. The sound of the door closing just as you reached for it. And after a while, something in you began to change. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But quietly. You stopped asking. You stopped expecting. You didn't become bitter, Capricorns rarely do. But you did become cautious. The door, once glowing with possibility, faded into the background of your life. You still passed by it sometimes. You still thought about what might be behind it. But deep down, you convinced yourself it wasn't meant for you. And maybe that was the point. Capricorn, the universe doesn't open sacred doors to those who demand them. It opens them to those who are prepared for them. And for years, that door wasn't locked out of cruelty. It was locked out of timing. It wasn't that you weren't worthy. It was that the person you were then wouldn't have known how to hold what was waiting on the other side. But now, something is shifting. That old door, the one you gave up on, is stirring. You can feel it in your spirit. You can sense something waking up again. Not because you chased it, but because you've grown into someone who no longer needs to chase. There's a story passed down among elders. A man spent his whole life seeking a sacred temple said to hold the answers to every question. He climbed mountains. He crossed deserts. He searched in caves, forests, libraries, churches. He aged. He gave up. And one day, when he returned home for the first time in decades, he saw something strange on the wall of his childhood home. A door carved into stone. One he had never noticed. He touched it. And it opened. The answers had always been waiting. He just had to become someone who could recognize them. Capricorn, that's your journey. The door wasn't somewhere out there. It was always within reach. But it took all of your becoming. All of your heartbreaks, delays, discipline, and silence. To finally align with it. Now, the door doesn't just open. It recognizes you. It knows you're ready. And when you cross that threshold, you don't just walk into a new season. You walk into a new self. That version of you who stood outside for years, wondering if you'd ever be chosen. That version dissolves here. You're not knocking anymore. You're stepping through. And the beauty is this. You no longer need the door to prove anything. Because you've already proven who you are by surviving everything that came before it. Capricorn, this door may appear as a conversation, a divine opportunity, a sudden alignment, or a realization so deep it rewrites your past. But no matter the form, you'll know it. Because something in your chest will relax, and your spirit will say, "This is it." It won't feel rushed. It won't feel forced. It will feel like exhaling for the first time in years. And you'll remember every time you were told, "Not yet." And you'll say, "Now, I understand." Because it was never no. It was just not now. And now has arrived. You've crossed deserts of disappointment to get here. You've held yourself together when life tried to split you apart. You've grown your soul in soil that felt dry and barren. But still, you rose. And now, the door that once seemed mythical is real. And it's open. Don't stand in the doorway too long. Don't overthink it. Don't ask if you're worthy. You are. And what's waiting for you doesn't just want you. It needs you. Because you've become someone who doesn't just receive blessings. You carry them with wisdom. This is what you were prepared for. Type it again if you feel this truth. I am ready. Because once you walk through, there's no going back to who you were before. And that's a good thing. You're not meant to return. You're meant to reign. Life Lesson, Part 3. Some doors in life do not respond to effort. They respond to readiness. You can chase, hustle, beg, or wait. But if you're not aligned internally, spiritually, emotionally, the door won't budge. Not because you're unworthy, but because what's behind it requires a version of you that can hold it without breaking. The delays you faced were never personal. They were purposeful. Your job was never to break down the door. Your job was to become someone who no longer needed to. Because when the right door opens, you won't have to fight for it. It will swing open because you are the key. Capricorn, your door is opening. Don't knock anymore. Walk in. Part 4. Why the others had to leave. Capricorn, let's speak plainly now. Not everyone who started the journey with you was meant to finish it beside you. And even though part of you always knew that, it still hurt when they left. The friend you would have done anything for. The lover who swore they'd stay. The family member who used your silence against you. The mentor who walked away when you stopped needing their approval. They didn't just disappear. They carved space in your story, then vanished without warning. And it made you question things you shouldn't have had to. Did I expect too much? Did I give too much? Was I too difficult to love? You searched your memories like crime scenes, picking apart every conversation, every glance, every silence. And when no answers came, you did what Capricorns always do. You kept going. But something changed in you. You stopped trusting as easily. You stopped reaching out first. You started wearing your strength like armor. Because if no one could see your soft spots, then no one could hurt them. But here's the truth. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they weren't equipped to grow with you. Capricorn, your energy is not light. It's grounding. It's ancient. It's heavy with purpose. You weren't put here to live a surface-level life. And not everyone is built to walk beside a soul with depth. Some people loved you, but only the version of you that didn't challenge them. The version that didn't speak up. That made room. That stayed small so others could feel big. Others didn't love you. They needed you. But they needed you in a way that drained you. Used you. Until your own spirit was starving. They said they missed you. But they only missed what you did for them. And Capricorn, that's not love. That's attachment. The truth is, their exit wasn't a loss. It was alignment. The universe was not punishing you. It was preserving you. Because their presence would have delayed your purpose. You didn't lose them. You were being cleared. Cleared of distractions. Of energy that couldn't hold you. Of people who only loved the version of you that served their comfort. Not your calling. Yes, the empty spaces they left behind still echo. Yes, there are songs that still remind you of them. Yes, sometimes, late at night, you still wonder where they are and if they ever look back. But what you'll come to understand is that the space they left was sacred, because it made room for something real. For the ones who see your value even when you're not performing. For the ones who stand beside you without keeping score. For the ones who love your depth, not fear it. For the ones who match your growth, not compete with it. You're not meant to carry everyone forward. Some were chapters, not lifetimes. And when their energy became too loud for the frequency you were stepping into, life, quietly but deliberately, removed them. Not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. You were being protected from staying too long in rooms that could no longer hold your becoming. And when you look back now, you may not yet feel gratitude, but one day, you will. One day, you'll look at where you are, the peace you've built, the power you've reclaimed, the clarity you've earned, and you'll whisper, "Thank you for leaving," not out of spite, but because their absence made space for your alignment. Capricorn, the ones who couldn't stay were never your foundation. They were the scaffolding, temporary structures that helped you build, but they were never meant to be permanent. And the moment you no longer needed them to hold you up, they collapsed. Let them go. Let them fall away. Let the silence they left behind speak louder than any closure they couldn't give you. You're not empty without them. You're freer. And what's ahead doesn't require their presence. It requires your full self. Unapologetic. Unburdened. Unattached to who couldn't stay. Type it again if you're ready to release what never truly belonged. I am ready. Because the path ahead won't ask you to shrink. It will demand you to rise. Life Lesson, Part 4. People leave for 3 reasons. Because they outgrew you. Because you outgrew them. Or because life made the decision you were too afraid to make. Either way, their departure has meaning. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your purpose. Some would have only slowed your steps. Others would have dimmed your light just to protect their own comfort. Letting go is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of maturity. A sign that you've stopped trying to fit your soul into places too small for your calling. Capricorn, you're not mourning what's lost. You're preparing for what's next. And you're not walking alone. You're walking lighter. Because sometimes, the most divine gift is the people who don't come with you. Part 5. You were hidden, not forgotten. Capricorn, there's a difference between being unseen and being misplaced. You were never lost. You were never abandoned. You were hidden. And not everyone understands the sacred power in that. To the outside world, it may have looked like you were standing still. Like your life had stopped moving forward. Like nothing was happening. But what they couldn't see was the quiet revolution unfolding inside of you. Because Capricorn, some of the most important transformations in your life didn't happen on a stage. They happened in solitude. In moments where no one clapped. Where no one watched. Where no one noticed you didn't break. Even when everything inside you wanted to. It's hard, isn't it? To give your all. And receive silence in return. To be the one who shows up consistently. Who sacrifices. Who pours out. Who stays grounded. And still feels invisible. There were times when you questioned your worth. Not because you doubted yourself. But because no one seemed to reflect it back to you. You walked into rooms and felt unseen. You spoke truth and were ignored. You gave love and received distance. And part of you started to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Why can't they see what I carry? Why am I so easy to overlook? But here's the truth. You weren't overlooked. You were overqualified for the places that didn't recognize you. You were never invisible. You were protected. Hidden from the people who would have misused your energy. Kept away from spaces that weren't ready for the weight of your purpose. You don't put a diamond on a plastic chain. You don't hand a masterpiece to someone who can't tell the difference between paint and soul. And the universe does not expose a Capricorn too soon. Because your journey isn't ordinary. It's legacy-driven. And legacy is never built in the spotlight. It's built in the shadows. In the sacred silence. In the invisible becoming. There's a story of a woman named Rena. She was a Capricorn, born in a small town, always the one people depended on. At 25, she left everything: family, familiarity, false security, to chase a vision no one understood. For 7 years, no one heard her name. She worked in basements, slept in studio apartments, wrote grants by candlelight, and wondered if it was all for nothing. But she never stopped. Not because she was certain of the outcome, but because something inside her knew. Her time was coming. One day, an international agency discovered her work. In a month, she went from being a nobody to receiving a global humanitarian award. But when they asked her, "How did this happen so fast?" she smiled and said, "It didn't. I just happened to become visible when I was finally ready to be seen." Capricorn, your journey may look similar. Years of work, of integrity, of sacrifice, with no recognition in sight. But you are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are being revealed. Strategically, intentionally, and only to the people who can honor the depth you carry. Because not everyone deserves access to your becoming. You are like a mountain being carved by time. Strong, silent, slowly forming something indestructible. And when people finally see you, they'll think it happened overnight. But you'll know the truth. It was built in the hidden. And you're not behind. You're perfectly timed. Your silence is ending. Your visibility is rising. And this time, you won't need to fight for attention. You'll command it by presence alone. Type it again, if you feel this in your spirit. I am ready. Because your moment is no longer approaching. It's entering. Life Lesson, Part 5. Being hidden is not the same as being forgotten. Sometimes, it's divine strategy. A shield of grace to protect you from being consumed too early. From being defined too quickly. From being used before you even know your own power. The world teaches us to crave visibility. To be seen, heard, celebrated. But what if your greatest strength is being formed in the places no one applauds? Capricorn, don't curse the hidden seasons. Bless them. Because when you emerge, you won't need to introduce yourself. Your character will speak for you. Your work will echo your name. And your presence will carry the weight of everything you built in silence. You're not waiting for validation. You're preparing to embody it. And soon, the world that once overlooked you will ask how you got here so fast. And you'll smile. Because you'll know you didn't get here fast. You got here rooted. And that makes all the difference. Part 6. Your delay was a setup, not a detour. Capricorn, if there's one thing that has tested you more than anything else, it's delay. You've waited. And waited. And waited some more. While others seemed to move ahead effortlessly, you often found yourself held back. Stuck in long seasons of effort with little reward. Doors that opened halfway, then slammed shut. Opportunities that looked promising until they disappeared. And each time, a voice inside you whispered, "What am I doing wrong?" But Capricorn, the truth is, you weren't being delayed because you were behind. You were being set up. Because of what's ahead. There is a kind of destiny that takes longer to arrive. Not because it's out of reach, but because its foundation must be unshakable. And Capricorn, your life has never been about quick wins. It's about legacy. That's why you couldn't take shortcuts. That's why the timing never aligned when you were rushing. That's why every time you tried to force something, it crumbled. Not because you weren't good enough, but because what's meant for you can't be built on unready ground. There's a story of a Capricorn man named Marcus. He applied for a dream position 5 times over 7 years. Each time, he improved. Each time, he was told, "Not yet." Each time, he considered giving up. Until year 8. A new role was created. Not the one he was chasing, but one even higher, custom designed for his skill set. Had he been accepted earlier, he would have spent years stuck in a position beneath his purpose. What felt like delay was divine redirection. Capricorn, look closely at your life. How many times did a no save you from something that wasn't aligned? How many times did a delay reroute you toward something better? How many times did what you thought was failure turn out to be protection. You see, the universe doesn't operate on convenience. It moves with precision. And your delay was not about denial. It was about becoming. Becoming strong enough to hold what's coming. Mature enough to discern what's real. Grounded enough not to sabotage the very thing you prayed for. If your timeline feels slower than others, remember this. What you're being prepared to carry is not ordinary. It's not small. It's not temporary. That's why it's taking time. Because Capricorn, your destiny doesn't just change your life. It impacts others. And the universe is not going to give you influence until your integrity is stable enough to hold it. So yes, you were delayed. But it wasn't a punishment. It was a setup. A cosmic arrangement of timing, place, and personal growth that will allow you to walk into your future without having to beg for it, explain it, or chase it. Capricorn, you didn't miss your moment. You're walking toward it. And when it meets you, it will fit. It will make sense. It will feel like home. But only because you honored the delay. And that is your superpower. Others rush. You prepare. Others force. You align. Others settle. You endure. Type it again if you feel this truth. I am ready. Because the waiting wasn't wasted. It was working. Life Lesson, Part 6. Delay does not mean denial. Sometimes, the longest wait leads to the most permanent reward. We live in a world that idolizes urgency. Faster. Sooner. Now. But legacy is never built in haste. And neither are you. Every detour was a redirection. Every unanswered prayer was a form of protection. Every silence was space for you to become more of who you are meant to be. Capricorn, your delay didn't weaken your destiny. It strengthened your ability to hold it. So stop cursing the slow seasons. Start honoring them. Because they've been the soil for the harvest you're about to receive. You weren't behind. You were being positioned. And now, you're almost exactly where you're supposed to be. Part 7. The shift you feel is real. Capricorn, there's something stirring inside you lately, isn't there? It's hard to name. It's not loud. But it's undeniable. You wake up with a strange sense of anticipation, like something's moving, even if nothing in your life has visibly changed. Your body is still in the same place. But your soul isn't. And that's how divine shifts always begin. Not with thunder, but with the quiet rearranging of your inner world. A deeper knowing. A steady pulling away from what no longer resonates. And a soft leaning into the life that's been waiting on the other side of your healing. You may have noticed. You no longer crave what once kept you up at night. You don't chase people who can't meet you in your depth. Your tolerance for pretending has vanished. Even your dreams have changed. Not the ones you have while sleeping, but the ones that rise in you while you're awake. They're clearer, bigger, more aligned. You've stopped wanting validation and started seeking peace. You've stopped trying to prove and started choosing. Capricorn, this is not a passing phase. This is spiritual momentum. It's the soul's way of preparing you, not for what you've already had, but for what you've never dared to believe you could hold. There's a quote, "When the caterpillar thought it was over, it became the butterfly." But no one talks about the in-between, the space where everything familiar dissolves, but nothing new has formed yet. That's where you are. You're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. It's disorienting at times. You might feel disconnected from people who once felt like home. You might feel restless in environments that used to satisfy you. You might even feel guilty for outgrowing what once saved you. But that's how you know the shift is real. Growth rarely feels like elevation. Sometimes it feels like loss. Letting go. Shedding identities that were never really you, just survival modes. You're not losing your mind. You're releasing what kept you small. You're not falling apart. You're unfolding. And Capricorn, you've earned this transformation. Because you didn't just survive the storm. You stayed open during it. You kept your heart soft when it would have been easier to become cold. You kept believing in love, Even when betrayal taught you not to. You kept building your future, even when you had no proof it would work. And now, that steady rumbling you feel inside is confirmation that the season is turning. The pace of life may not reflect it yet, but your intuition does. That's the thing about Capricorns. You don't just read the times, you sense the tectonic shifts long before the surface ever cracks. You've been feeling the change before anyone else could name it. And soon, what's been moving in spirit will begin manifesting in reality. The call will come, the opportunity will arrive, the door will swing open, and you'll walk through it without hesitation, because your spirit already told you it was coming. Type it again if you feel the shift. I am ready, because the change you sense isn't imagined. It's the truth rising inside you. Life Lesson, Part 7. Most people wait for outside confirmation before they believe something is happening. But Capricorns, you've always known to trust the inner shift first. Transformation rarely begins with fireworks. It begins with discomfort, with a sense that your spirit is too big for the space you've been living in, with dreams that no longer fit your current environment. The shift you feel is not a signal to panic. It's a signal to prepare, to gather your energy, to release what's no longer aligned, to trust that your inner knowing is not a fantasy. It's a forecast. Capricorn, you don't need everything to look different to believe something different is coming, because what you sense in your bones is often more accurate than what others can see with their eyes. This shift is not temporary. It's not surface level. It's sacred. And it's real. Part 8. What awaits on the other side of the door? Capricorn, the door is open now. Not cracked. Not slightly ajar. Fully open. And for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, there's nothing stopping you from stepping through. No more delays. No more lessons half-learned. No more convincing the world of what you already know in your bones. But let's be honest. Stepping into the unknown, even when it's beautiful, is still terrifying. Because the moment you walk through this door, you don't just step into a new life. You leave behind an old version of yourself. The version that learned to survive by shrinking. The version that carried everyone else's weight. The version that thought strength meant silence. That version got you here. Honor it. Thank it. And then let it rest. Because what's on the other side of this door requires a different version of you. Not a harder one. Not a more perfect one. A softer one. A wiser one. One who doesn't flinch when offered ease. One who receives joy without guilt. One who lets love in without questioning whether they're worthy. Capricorn, what's waiting for you now is not just a reward. It's a realm of alignment, where the work you've done in silence is finally seen. Where your energy is respected instead of extracted. Where relationships are mutual, not one-sided. Where purpose feels natural because it no longer fights against your survival instincts. In this realm, you don't hustle for your worth. You don't prove your value. You simply exist in your truth. And that's enough. This is the land of divine timing, where everything that once felt out of reach starts coming toward you. Not because you're chasing, but because you've become magnetic to what is meant for you. You'll begin to notice small things at first. Strangers affirming what your spirit already told you. Opportunities showing up that mirror your deepest dreams. People entering your life who reflect your healed self, not your wounded one. And you'll realize, you're not waiting anymore. You're receiving. You're not convincing anyone to stay. You're surrounded by those who never leave. You're not begging for rest. It's built into the rhythm of your life now. This is the other side of the door. And you didn't arrive here by luck. You arrived here by choice. By integrity. By staying aligned when it would have been easier to bend. Capricorn, you've paid the price. You've sacrificed. You've outgrown. You've endured seasons where no one applauded. And you clapped for yourself in the dark. You've done the inner work. You've faced the mirror without looking away. You've unlearned the belief that pain is a prerequisite for love. Now, you're ready to build without breaking. to receive without retreating, to live instead of surviving. Type it one more time if you're ready to claim it. I am ready. Because what's on the other side of the door isn't just a new chapter. It's the story you were born to live. Life Lesson, Part 8. When the door finally opens, it's not enough to notice it. You must walk through it with intention. Fear will whisper, "Maybe I'm not ready." But readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision. Your future doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence, for courage, for the willingness to trust that you're not the person you once were. Capricorn, you don't need to ask for permission anymore. You've already been anointed by the journey. And what's ahead? It's not a prize for your pain. It's a mirror of your becoming. So take the step, breathe deeply, and cross fully into what's always been waiting for you. You didn't just survive. You transformed. And now, it's time to live like it. Part 9. Conclusion. You were born for this. Capricorn, take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tension leave your jaw. Let the past be what it was. Preparation. You've walked through each part of this message not as a listener, but as someone remembering. Because nothing you heard today was new to your soul. It was simply confirmation of what you've felt for years. That your life has always been part of something greater. That your delays were sacred. That your silence had a voice. That your strength wasn't wasted. It was woven into your becoming. You were not created for the ordinary. You were not placed here to follow. You were born to lead. Not loudly, not arrogantly, but from within. With wisdom earned through stillness. With power forged in solitude. With a knowing that can't be taught, only lived. And you have lived, haven't you? You've buried versions of yourself others never even knew existed. You've built while grieving. Loved while breaking. Held others up when no one was holding you. You've smiled in rooms where your spirit was dying. You've kept going when your heart whispered, "Stop." And still, you rose. Not in flames, but in quiet resilience. The kind of rising that doesn't need an audience. Because the real prize was never applause. It was alignment. And now, Capricorn, you're here. You've reached the edge of the life you imagined. And the beginning of the one that's finally ready to begin. The people who left, let them go. The time you feel you lost, it wasn't lost, it was invested. The version of you who had to survive, bless them, and release them. Because what's ahead won't ask you to perform. It will invite you to be. Fully. Honestly. Freely. You no longer need to edit your light. You no longer need to question your worth. You no longer need to explain why you feel things so deeply, or why your silence has always held more truth than the world ever knew how to handle. Capricorn, your life is unfolding now. Not with chaos, not with noise, but with certainty. You were born for this. This message, this moment, this awakening. And now you get to live the story you've been writing in your soul for years. So before we close, I want you to type it one final time. I am ready. Not for battle. Not for survival. But for living fully, freely, truthfully. Because your time has come. Your season is here. And the door didn't just open for you to peek inside. It opened so you could walk through and never return to what once held you small. Life Lesson, Part 9. Capricorn, life was never punishing you. It was positioning you. Every ending was a redirection. Every silence was sacred. Every loss made space for something real. You weren't waiting for a message. The message was waiting for you to be ready. And now you are. So step forward. Let the past be your proof. Let the present be your power. Let the future be your peace. You've given the world so much of your strength. Now give yourself your softness, your joy, your fullness. You are no longer becoming. You are here. And the best chapters, they begin right now. If this message spoke to your soul, subscribe. Not just because of content, but because we're building a space where Capricorn wisdom is honored, not misunderstood. This is your home. This is your moment. This is your truth. You were born for this.